The fluorescent lights above the community center polling station flickered, humming like a warning. Aisha Carter felt the vibration in her chest before she heard Officer Briggs's boots behind her, slow, heavy, territorial. She kept her voter ID clasped in her hand, knuckles white, breath steady. She'd visited hundreds of polling booths across the state, but this one felt different. Too quiet, too watched. "Ma'am," Briggs drawled, stopping just close enough to force her to step aside. "You sure you're at the right place? This line's for registered voters." Aisha swallowed the heat, rising in her throat. She'd heard that line too many times, from too many men who assumed the same story about her. But this time, something inside her tightened. An old wound pulled open by a familiar blade. Around them, people shifted, pretending not to listen. The volunteers at the table exchanged glances, but said nothing. Aisha lifted her chin, trying to steady the tremor in her voice. "You saw my ID." Briggs smirked, tapping it once with his gloved finger. "Yeah, I just didn't think it matched you." The words cut fast, sharp. A few voters turned away, shame or fear. She couldn't tell. Aisha reached for her badge holder inside her coat, instinctively wanting to prove something she shouldn't have to. But Briggs's hand shot out, gripping her wrist before she touched it. "Let's not make this difficult," he whispered. And that was the moment she knew. He hadn't recognized who she truly was. Not yet. Aisha Carter stepped to the glass doors of the Jefferson Avenue Community Center and felt the weight of Election Day settle over her like a fluctuating heartbeat. Steady 1 second, jarring the next. Fluorescent bulbs buzz above the polling booths, their hum blending with the murmurs of anxious voters. She carried only a clipboard in her small badge case tucked inside her coat, preferring anonymity during field audits. The goal was always the same: observe quietly, intervene only if necessary. But the shift in the room's energy began the moment Officer Briggs straightened from his post near the entrance. "Ma'am," he called, his voice too loud for space. "Hold up." Aisha paused. The voters behind her paused with her, tension tightening the line like a pulled string. Briggs approached with the swagger of someone who believed the building belonged to him. His uniform was crisp, his smirk even sharper. He looked her up and down, lingering just long enough to register his judgment. "You here to vote?" he asked. "Yes." Her voice remained level. "Got ID?" She handed it over, the plastic warm from her palm. Briggs studied it, then flicked his eyes toward her face. "Where'd you get this?" Aisha blinked. "It's mine." "Uh-huh." He leaned in. "You sure?" Aisha could feel the glances. People weren't looking at her, not directly, but she felt their listening. She let out a slow breath. "I'd like to proceed." Briggs stepped in front of her path. "Not until I clear you." A volunteer at the check-in table shifted uneasily, but said nothing. Aisha kept her expression neutral. "You've seen my ID." "Maybe I want to see more," he replied. Stepped to the side. She hesitated. Revealing her badge too quickly often changed behavior, but erased truth. She needed to observe him honestly, needed to see how far he would go. Aisha walked to the indicated corner. Briggs followed, posture widening as if to block her from view. "What's in your coat?" he asked. "Personal items." "Show me." "No." Her voice sharpened just enough. "You don't have cause." His jaw twitched. "Lady, you're acting suspicious. I walked through the door and handed you my ID." "That's not all you did," he snapped. Aisha's heart tapped against her ribs. She felt heat rise, not fear, but something more complicated. Disappointment, familiarity, a tiredness she wished didn't feel so heavy. "I'm going to the table now," she said. Briggs shoved his arm out, blocking her. "You're not going anywhere." The room stilled. Someone muttered, "Here we go again." Aisha reached slowly toward her coat interior, toward her credentials, her authority, the truth that could end this confrontation instantly. But Briggs seized her wrist before she touched the fabric. "What did I tell you?" he growled. "Don't make this difficult." Pain shot through her arm. She kept her voice low. "Release me." He didn't. He squeezed once hard, then jerked his chin toward a side hallway. "Let's talk somewhere private." "A private room?" she echoed. For what? Verification. You already verified. I said, let's go. Aisha looked around the room. No one met her eyes. No one stepped forward. She allowed herself to be guided. Not because she was powerless, but because she needed the truth to unfold fully, visibly. As Briggs opened the door to the dim side room, she realized the chilling part wasn't the isolation. It was how normal everyone had acted as she disappeared behind it. The door clicked shut behind them with a hollow, echoing thud. The small storage room smelled faintly of old chairs and disinfectant, the kind of forgotten space used only when someone wanted silence or secrecy. Officer Briggs positioned himself between Aisha and the exit, arms crossed, feet planted wide. His presence filled the room like a lock cage. Sit, he ordered. Aisha remained standing. I prefer to stay here. His eye twitched. Didn't ask your preference. You didn't need me in here, she replied, voice calm. You chose this. Briggs stepped closer. You walk into my polling station, acting jumpy, hiding things in your coat. I wasn't hiding anything. That's not how it looked to me. Aisha studied him carefully. His face wasn't enraged yet, just confident. Confident enough to believe he could rewrite any scene to match his suspicion. Confident no one would question him. Confident she would fold. She didn't. The door creaked open slightly, and Officer Haynes slipped in. Younger, tense, eyes darting between them. Briggs. They're asking why you pulled her aside. People notice. Good. Briggs grunted. They should notice. Something's off here. Aisha turned toward Haynes. Officer, I asked for a supervisor. Briggs cut in before Haynes could respond. Supervisor's busy. You'll talk to me. That wasn't the question, she said softly. Briggs's jaw tightened. What's your deal, lady? You trying to stir something today? You think creating drama is going to get you sympathy votes? Aisha lifted her chin. I am not a voter seeking sympathy. Then why are you snooping around? His voice sharpened. Why were you watching the lines? Why'd you circle the check-in tables twice? Who are you reporting to? I walk polling floors, she answered evenly. That's my job. Briggs barked a laugh. Your job? Doing what exactly? Aisha hesitated. Not from fear, but from calculation. Timing mattered. Pattern mattered. Evidence mattered. Once she revealed her identity, this encounter would be rewritten by him and his supervisors as a simple misunderstanding. But if she let the behavior unfold, the truth would be undeniable. Haynes cleared his throat. Briggs, maybe we should just let her vote. She showed you her ID. I checked. She's registered. Address matches the precinct. You checked. Briggs snapped. When did I tell you to do that? Haynes backed away slightly. People were staring. I thought. That's your problem. Briggs cut him off. You think too much. He turned back to Aisha, eyes narrowed. Let me see what's in your coat. No. You refusing a lawful request? That depends, she replied, voice still steady, on whether the request is lawful. Briggs took a step toward her. Lady, you're one breath away from being detained. Haynes shifted nervously. Briggs, she didn't do anything. You don't know what she did. Briggs pointed at Aisha. She's hiding something. I can feel it. Feelings aren't probable cause, Aisha murmured. For a moment the room froze. Briggs stared at her as if she'd slapped him. He wasn't used to people challenging him, especially not people like her. Not black women who refused to shrink. Not black women who refused to apologize for taking up space. What did you just say? He growled. Aisha met his glare. I asked for a supervisor. Well, you're not getting one until I say so. Aisha drew a breath. Then we're done here. She moved to walk past him, but Briggs shoved a hand against the wall beside her, blocking her path without touching her this time. But the intent was clear. You think you get to call the shots, he hissed. Aisha didn't flinch. I expect procedures to be followed. Oh, I'll follow procedures, he said, after I figure out what game you're playing. Before she could respond, a soft knock rattled the door. Haynes opened an inch. A nervous volunteer poked her head inside, barely a silhouette against the hallway light. Her voice trembled. Ma'am, you're Your phone keeps ringing. It says, State Election Director. They want to speak with you. Briggs stiffened. Aisha didn't move. The volunteer swallowed and added, They said it's urgent. Haynes looked at Briggs, panic settling into his features. Briggs's face flushed red, confusion flickering underneath. Aisha simply watched him, silent, steady, unblinking. Now the balance had shifted. He just didn't know how far. Aisha didn't reach for the door. She didn't move at all, just let the silence coil around Officer Briggs like a tightening rope. His certainty, once thick and immovable, flickered. Haynes stood frozen beside him, torn between duty and unease. Briggs broke first. State Election Director? He scoffed at the volunteer. Probably some robocall. Scam number. These people fall for anything. The volunteer winced. Sir, it's, the official line. With the seal. Aisha finally spoke. I need my phone. Briggs swung toward her. You're not taking a call in here. It isn't optional. He stepped closer, as if proximity alone could overpower her reasoning. You think saying big titles is going to intimidate me? Lady, I've seen plenty of folks try to bluff their way out of trouble. I haven't bluffed, she replied, voice smooth as glass. You made assumptions. Haynes opened the door wider, worried eyes bouncing between them. Briggs, what if she's telling the truth? She's not, Briggs snapped. Look at her. She waltzes in dress like... He stopped himself, but the implication hung heavy. Aisha felt it strike her chest like a cold wind. He didn't need to finish the sentence. She'd heard versions of it her whole life. Aisha exhaled slowly. My phone. No, Briggs barked. I'm confiscating it for the moment. Haynes blinked. Confiscating? On what grounds? Suspicious activity, Briggs said. She kept reaching inside her coat. Could have been anything. It was my credentials. Sure it was. Aisha studied him. Officer Briggs, there are policies regarding the handling of election officials. You're not an official. You haven't asked. Don't need to. I can read people. Aisha's gaze sharpened. But you didn't read my ID. Briggs flushed. It didn't look right. It was valid. He pointed at her coat. You're hiding something. That's all I need to know. Assumptions aren't evidence, she murmured. Briggs slammed a hand onto a nearby table, making a plastic container wobble. Stop talking like you're in charge. Haynes flinched. Aisha didn't. Outside the thin door, murmurs grew, soft, unsure, growing like a swelling tide. Is she still in there? Why'd they take her? I saw him grab her wrist. Should someone call somebody? Briggs heard it too. His expression hardened. Great. Now you're causing a scene. I wasn't the one who raised my voice, Aisha replied. That's it. Briggs stalked toward the hallway. I'm confiscating her phone before she starts recording nonsense. The volunteer startled and held up the device. I didn't touch anything. It just kept ringing. Briggs snatched it from her hand. The screen lit instantly. State Election Oversight HQ, Director's Office. Aisha watched Briggs's jaw slacken. He masked it quickly. Probably some prank. It's not a prank, she said. He turned the phone over in his palm, searching for an escape. He didn't find one. You aren't answering it, he said finally. Haynes stepped closer. Briggs, maybe we should at least see what they want. I said no. Briggs snapped. Haynes recoiled. Silence choked the room again. Aisha didn't raise her voice. She didn't glare. She simply stated, if you deny that call, you interfere with a state investigation. Briggs scoffed loudly, but his fingers tightened around the phone. Investigation? Into what he sneered. Into voter suppression and misconduct. Briggs blinked. You think you can accuse me of... I haven't accused you of anything, Aisha said. Your behavior is documenting itself. That hit him harder than shouting ever could. The phone buzzed again. Briggs stared at the glowing screen, pulse flickering in his temple. You know what? I'm tired of this. I'm turning it off. That would be obstruction, Aisha said softly. Lady, I swear. Haynes stepped between them, voice trembling. Briggs, Stop. Briggs froze, stunned that his partner had intervened. Haynes swallowed hard. This feels wrong. All of it. She hasn't done anything. And that's the director calling. If she's connected to them, we're in trouble. Briggs glared at him. What? You're taking her side. I'm taking the side of not getting fired. Haynes whispered urgently. The phone vibrated again in Briggs's grip. Longer this time. Insistent. Aisha held his gaze. Unwavering. You can answer it. Or you can escalate a situation you created. Either way, the truth will surface. Briggs's nostrils flared. Truth is, I don't trust you. You don't know me? I know enough. Aisha's voice lowered. No, you judged enough. For a heartbeat, the room held still. Briggs gripped the phone. Haynes braced for impact, the volunteer hovering in terrified silence. Then, muffled through the small space, another sound emerged. More voices outside. Concern. Disbelief. Growing suspicion. The pressure grew. Briggs realized he was no longer in control. Aisha could see the wobble in his stance, the crack in his authority. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply waited. Her silence had become power. And Briggs, trembling with resentment, stood on the brink of a mistake he couldn't undo. The tension in the cramped room thickened until even the fluorescent light felt heavy. Briggs stood rooted in place, still gripping Aisha's phone as if it might explode in his hand. Haynes hovered near the door, 1 foot practically in the hallway, wanting distance but not daring to move. Finally, voices outside rose into a unified buzz. Someone must have alerted the on-site supervisor, because the hallway suddenly shifted from anxious murmurs to clipped footsteps and hushed commands. The door opened. Lieutenant Markham stepped inside, irritation already etched between his brows. What's going on? And why are voters reporting an officer dragging someone into a back room? Briggs straightened immediately, shoulders snapping into rigid lines. Sir, I detained this woman for suspicious behavior. She was circling the polling area, avoiding questions, reaching into her coat. Aisha remained silent, watching them both with steady eyes. Markham glanced at her briefly, then returned his attention to Briggs. You couldn't resolve this at the door? No, sir. Briggs said, I believe she was trying to disrupt operations. Haynes shifted, visibly uncomfortable. Sir, she showed ID. Valid ID. Briggs shot him a look sharp enough to cut. Aisha finally spoke, her tone calm but edged. Lieutenant, I asked for a supervisor 20 minutes ago. Markham frowned. And why wasn't I called immediately? Briggs lifted his chin. I was handling it. You were supposed to call me. Markham snapped. We don't put voters or anyone into storage rooms for questioning. Briggs's jaw clenched. With respect, sir, she wasn't cooperating. Aisha's voice softened. I answered every question you asked. You refused to show what was in your coat. Briggs retorted. Because it wasn't relevant, she replied, and because you offered no legal basis. Markham raised a hand to silence both. Enough. Let me see her ID. Aisha reached into her coat slowly, this time without interference, and handed over both her state ID and a separate, slim badge folder. Markham opened it. The room shifted. His posture altered instantly, his face draining of color. He looked from the badge to Aisha, back to the badge, as if his mind needed multiple passes to process the reality. You're, he cleared his throat, Deputy Director Carter? Aisha inclined her head. Yes. Haynes nearly stumbled backward. Briggs's face froze into a mask of disbelief. Markham swallowed hard. Ma'am, I apologize. We were not informed you'd be visiting this site today. Field audits are more effective when they're unannounced, Aisha replied. Briggs blinked rapidly, then forced a laugh. No way. This has to be some kind of... Markham cut him off harshly. Briggs, she runs statewide election operations. Aisha added gently, and monitors polling site compliance. Briggs stared at her as if the floor had tilted beneath him. This is ridiculous. She didn't even say who she was. She was hiding it. I was observing. Aisha corrected. That is my job. But you, he pointed at her coat, frustration rising in sputtered waves. You were acting suspicious. Anyone would have questioned that. Haynes whispered. She literally said she walks polling floors for her job. Briggs snapped. I thought she was lying. Markham pinched the bridge of his nose. You thought wrong. Briggs stepped forward, desperate to regain footing. Sir, she provoked this. She was defiant, argumentative. Markham's posture stiffened. Deputy Director Carter, can you confirm this? Aisha held Briggs's gaze. I remain calm. I asked for a supervisor. He refused. Markham exhaled slowly. That's a serious breach. Briggs's voice cracked. Sir, you can't just take her word for her. Haynes finally spoke louder, stronger. I heard everything, sir. She didn't raise her voice once. She didn't resist. Briggs wouldn't listen. The lieutenant turned to Briggs with a hard stare. You mishandled this. Badly. Briggs's expression twisted into something darker. Anger, fear, a hint of humiliation. Sir, she's trying to ruin my career. People like her. He stopped abruptly, realizing too late what he'd almost said aloud. Aisha didn't flinch. She simply said, I'm documenting all statements made during this encounter. Markham's breathing hitched. Briggs, step outside. Now! Briggs shook his head, lost between panic and pride. This is a setup. It has to be. She walked in here wanting trouble. Aisha spoke quietly. I walked in to ensure the poll was running smoothly. Nothing more. Markham pointed at the door. Briggs. Out! But the officer didn't move, frozen not in refusal, but in dawning realization. A slow understanding crept over his features. The room had shifted, the authority no longer his, the story no longer his to control. Markham turned to Aisha with a strained voice. Deputy Director, how would you like to proceed? Aisha inhaled, steady and controlled, but her heartbeat felt heavy. For now, she said, I'd like to return to the polling floor. My work isn't finished. Briggs stared after her as she walked out, his certainty shattered, his power slipping through his fingers like dust. And Aisha knew this was only the beginning. When Aisha stepped back onto the polling floor, the atmosphere shifted in a way she recognized instantly. Eyes flickered toward her, then away, as if people feared being caught noticing. Conversations dipped mid-sentence. A hush rolled through the room, like a tide retreating before a storm. Briggs remained in the hallway with Lieutenant Markham, their voices tense but muffled. Voters avoided looking at them, avoided looking at her, but the silence itself spoke volumes. A volunteer at the check-in table, an older woman with trembling hands, leaned in slightly as Aisha approached. Ma'am, she whispered, I'm so sorry. I should have said something earlier. Aisha shook her head gently. You're not responsible for his choices. The woman lowered her gaze. He's done this before, not quite like that, but enough that people try not to make eye contact when they walk in. Aisha absorbed the words with a quiet ache. Patterns didn't emerge in a vacuum. They were cultivated, tolerated, repeated until they became routine. A younger volunteer, maybe 19, stepped forward next. Thank you, she said almost inaudibly, for not backing down. I wasn't trying to start a confrontation, Aisha replied. The young woman nodded. That's why it mattered. As Aisha moved through the room, pretending to inspect signage and space in between booths, whispers drifted from nearby voters. That officer's always like that. Scares people off. My cousin stopped voting here because of him. They finally caught him on the wrong day. Aisha kept her expression neutral, but each comment added weight to her steps. This site was meant to be a place of civic trust. Yet here, the walls seemed trained to hold secrets. She approached a woman holding a baby on her hip, waiting in line. The woman gave her a small, cautious smile. You okay? She murmured. Yes, Aisha said, and thank you for asking. The woman hesitated, then added, He made my brother step outside last year, said his ID was fake because the address looked too nice. My brother didn't fight it, didn't want trouble, but he never came back to vote. A quiet, painful beat passed. Aisha lowered her voice. "If you're comfortable, I'd like to speak with him later." The woman nodded. "He'll talk to you. He's angry now. Took him time, but he's angry." Aisha exhaled slowly. Every testimony added another thread to the truth, a truth she would not allow to be dismissed as misunderstanding. She continued her walkthrough, mentally recording every detail. The volunteers' uneasy glances toward the hallway, the electorate's shrinking posture when uniformed officers walked past, the absence of open dialogue or trust. Then she noticed Briggs again, standing just beyond the doorway, partly hidden behind Markham. His eyes followed her like shadows follow light. Fury simmered beneath his stiff posture. His jaw flexed each time someone whispered within earshot. He hated that she still occupied the room, hated that she had authority, hated that his assumptions had been wrong. Aisha ignored him. Closer to the entrance, a teenage girl with braids sat at the registration help desk. She scribbled nervously on a clipboard, then finally stood when Aisha passed. "Ms. Carter," she whispered. Aisha paused. "Yes, I saw everything. I recorded some of it on my phone." Aisha stiffened. "You did?" The girl nodded. "I wasn't trying to start anything. My mom told me to always record if something feels wrong. And it felt wrong. Really wrong." Aisha's voice softened. "Thank you. That's an important decision you made." The girl straightened her shoulders, a flicker of pride beneath her anxiety. "If you need it, you can have the video." "I might," Aisha said, "but only if you're comfortable." "I am." Nearby, a camera flash pulsed near the windows. Then another. Aisha turned toward the glass doors. 2 local news reporters lingered outside. Someone must have tipped them off. Perhaps voters. Perhaps volunteers. Perhaps the rumor moved faster than the truth. Markham noticed him too. He rushed to the door, attempting to speak with the reporters discreetly. But the tension on the floor had already taken on a life of its own. The smell of fear, frustration, and possibility hung in the air. Aisha approached the exit for a moment of breath. Briggs remained rooted across the room, glowering. His anger was no longer controlled. It was wounded, cornered, simmering into something unpredictable. The teenage girl's voice echoed in Aisha's mind. "I recorded some of it. Power could shift with a single image, a single word, a single truth finally made visible." Aisha turned back toward the room, her posture resolute. She wasn't just documenting a moment. She was unraveling a system. And Briggs, he knew it. The atmosphere in the polling center had shifted from anxious to electric, an invisible current running through every whispered conversation, every exchanged glance. Aisha felt it as she crossed the room, clipboard in hand, documenting spacing, signage, and booth flow. She moved with purpose, not haste. Calm, not fear. Briggs followed her movements like a storm cloud stalking sunlight. Every step she took, he mirrored from a distance. Every voter who approached her, he glared at. Every whisper he overheard, his jaw tightened further. Lieutenant Markham tried to corral him near the entrance, speaking in sharp, low tones, but Briggs's eyes never left Aisha. His fury simmered like boiling water beneath a glass lid. Finally, that lid shattered. "Aisha!" Briggs barked, loud enough to make the entire line stiffen. Markham hissed, "Briggs, keep your voice down." But it was too late. Briggs marched across the floor toward her, his boots echoing like strikes of a gavel. Voters stepped back instinctively as he approached. Phones rose. Cameras blinked awake. The room braced itself. Aisha turned slowly, meeting him with unwavering calm. "Officer Briggs." "What game are you playing?" he snarled. "No game," she said. "You're ruining my career. You know that, right? You walked in here today with an agenda." "My agenda is election integrity," Aisha replied. Briggs jabbed a finger at her chest without touching. "No, don't spin this. You came in here hoping to trap me. You wanted to make me look bad. You did that yourself," Aisha said softly. Gasps tremored through the line. Briggs took another step forward, invading her space. His breath came fast, uneven. "People like you." The room froze. Aisha's heartbeat slowed. Finish the sentence. His lips trembled with the words he wanted to release, but the presence of cameras forced him into restraint. He switched targets instead. You're a fraud, he spat, walking around like you're some hero. But I see through it. I see through you. Aisha kept her posture straight. I'm simply doing my work. No, you're trying to tear down law enforcement, Briggs said, raising his voice. You're trying to make us look like villains. Bias makes villains of ordinary officers when it is left unchecked, she replied. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Briggs's face reddened. You think you're better than me? You think because you got some fancy title, you get to order everyone around. I haven't ordered anyone, Aisha said. I've only asked that you follow procedure. You embarrass me. Briggs exploded. You humiliated me in front of my supervisor, in front of voters. Aisha blinked. Your ego is not the priority here. Phones lifted higher. People leaned in closer. Markham rushed forward. Briggs, that's enough. Step away. But Briggs shoved his arm aside. No, let her hear it. He turned back to Aisha, eyes blazing. You think you can walk in here and expose me? You think you can destroy my reputation? I think your actions exposed you, she replied. It was the last tether. Briggs stepped forward again, so close they shared the same pocket of air. Aisha didn't move. She didn't retreat or shrink. She simply held his gaze. Say something, he whispered, trembling with fury. Say one more thing and see what happens. The room fell into a collective breath held too long. Aisha spoke quietly. You are intimidating voters. Right now, on camera. Briggs blinked, realizing too late what he had done. Phones captured everything. The posture, the proximity, the threat embedded between his clenched teeth. The video would have context, tone, witnesses. There would be no rewriting it. A voter closest to them whispered loudly, Is this all being recorded? Another answered, Yeah, everything. Markham grabbed Briggs's arm. Officer, step back. Now! Briggs jerked free, but the movement came out wild, uncontrolled. His boot slipped on the floor, sending him stumbling half a step. Someone in line gasped. He caught himself, but dignity had already slipped. The room erupted in murmurs. Aisha remained still, calm as stone. Briggs steadied himself, breath ragged. See what you've done, he snarled. This is your fault. You turned the whole room against me. No, Aisha said gently. Your actions did. The words landed like a final strike. Markham stepped between them. Briggs, you're done. Get out of the building. Briggs looked ready to argue. Then he saw the cameras. Dozens of them, all pointed at him, all recording. His chest rose and fell violently. I'll be filing a report, he growled, backing away. So will I, Aisha said. The stare he gave her was the last flash of defiance from a man realizing the ground beneath him had cracked open, and he was falling. The video hit the internet before the tension inside the polling station had even fully dispersed. A teenager uploaded it. A mother shared it. A local activist reposted with a caption, This is why people are afraid to vote. Within minutes, the clip was circulating faster than rumors could keep up. Aisha stepped outside to take the long-delayed call from HQ. The November air was cool, sharp, but she didn't feel the wind. Her focus narrowed as the state election director's stern voice filled her ear. Deputy Carter, what on earth is happening at Jefferson Avenue? An officer overstepped authority, Aisha said, multiple times. I've seen the footage. It's bad. It's honest, she replied. There was a pause. We need you back at HQ tonight. Aisha stared at the polling center doors. I'm in the middle of an audit. If I leave, they'll say I fled because of the attention. And if you stay, the director countered, the media will turn this into a spectacle. This is a spectacle, Aisha murmured. I didn't choose that. The director sighed. All right, finish the audit. Then come in first thing in the morning. When the call ended, Aisha stood still for a few seconds, grounding herself. But the moment she stepped back inside, she felt the ripple of energy, people watching her with a mix of relief, curiosity, and a newfound sense of possibility. She had become a symbol without wanting to be one. Briggs had become one too, but not in the way he imagined. Near the back of the room, Markham approached, his expression pulled taut. "We placed Officer Briggs on temporary leave pending review." "Temporary?" Aisha asked. "We have procedures," he said weakly. Aisha scanned his face. He wasn't defending Briggs. He was defending the institution that had protected him for years. There was a difference, and a dangerous one. "Lieutenant," she said quietly, "how many complaints have been filed against him?" Markham swallowed. "We can't discuss personnel records." "I wasn't asking for details," Aisha replied. "Just a number." He hesitated. That was answer enough. "Excuse me," she said, walking past him. She needed air again, but instead of exiting, she found herself drawn toward the voters still waiting in line. Their eyes followed her, but they weren't afraid. They were hopeful. A man stepped forward. "Ma'am," he whispered, "I saw what he did, and what you did too. Thank you." "I didn't do anything extraordinary," Aisha said. "Maybe not to you," he replied, "but to us, you did." Another woman, older and carrying a cane, leaned closer. "He scared me last year. Told me I was at the wrong precinct, even though I've lived here 40 years. I turned around and went home. I didn't vote." She paused, voice cracking. "Today is the first time I felt safe enough to try again." Aisha's throat tightened. "I'm sorry that happened to you." The woman shook her head. "Don't apologize. Just don't stop." Aisha nodded once, feeling their expectations settle over her like a mantle. As she walked the floor, examining the entrances, privacy screens, and ballot drop boxes, several volunteers discreetly approached her. One whispered, "We've filed complaints before. They got ignored." Another admitted. His supervisor always brushed it off, said voters were sensitive. A third quietly offered, "If you open an investigation, we'll back you." Aisha recorded every testimony in her notes, each one a thread pulling at a larger tapestry. The story was no longer about one officer and one moment. It was bigger, woven into the institution, the culture, the quiet acceptance of harm. Her phone buzzed again. Messages from colleagues, civil rights groups, even journalists. "Is the video true? Do you need support? Are you safe to speak?" Aisha didn't answer any of them yet. She glanced across the room. Briggs was gone, but the echo of his rage remained. Near the doorway, Haynes lingered, shifting anxiously. When he saw her looking, he approached cautiously. "Deputy Carter," he said, voice soft. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner." "You did step in," Aisha replied, "not when it mattered most." Aisha considered him carefully. Fear is real, but accountability has to be too. Haynes lowered his voice. "If there's an inquiry, I'll tell the truth. All of it." "Thank you," she said. As he walked away, the magnitude of the unfolding moment settled over her. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a revelation. And tomorrow, when she walked into HQ, armed with testimony, video, and the weight of public attention, the institution would try to contain it. She would not let them. The truth had already unraveled. Now it needed to be set free. The State Oversight Chamber was built for ceremony. Polished wood panels, raised seating, a row of flags behind the board. But today, it felt like a courtroom. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters filled every available seat. The buzz of whispered speculation rolled across the room like distant thunder. Aisha sat at the witness table, her notes neatly stacked, her heartbeat steady but heavy. She had testified before on policy, on oversight, on procedure, but never on something so personal, so raw. The board chair cleared her throat. "Deputy Director Carter, thank you for appearing today. We understand the last 48 hours have been intense." "That's one word for it," Aisha replied quietly. A few reporters scribbled eagerly. "Let's begin," the chair said. "You may provide your statement." Aisha lifted her eyes to the chamber. "Voters, Volunteers, lawyers, officers, members of the public who watched the video and saw themselves. She thought of the woman with the cane, the teenager who recorded the footage, the young volunteer who whispered thank you. She spoke for them. In my field audit of the Jefferson Avenue polling site, she began, I witnessed and experienced a pattern of conduct by Officer Briggs that suggests a practice of voter intimidation, particularly toward black voters. Pen stopped, snapped upward. Multiple individuals came forward with consistent accounts. Aisha continued, these were not isolated incidents. They represent a climate of fear fostered over several election cycles. A buzz rippled through the gallery. And on election day, she added, the officer escalated from microaggressions to unlawful detainment, verbal hostility, and obstruction of duties. The chair nodded solemnly. We appreciate your clarity. Now, we will hear from Officer Briggs. The room shifted again, anticipation thick, like everyone inhaled at once. Briggs entered with stiff shoulders, accompanied by his union representative. He avoided Aisha's gaze, though his jaw twitched with barely hidden resentment. He took his seat and adjusted the microphone. I never intimidated anyone, he began. I was ensuring election security. That's my job. She, a jerking gesture toward Aisha, was acting suspicious. Anyone would have done what I did. The union rep leaned in. Officer Briggs has a record of service and no proven misconduct. He reacted to unclear circumstances. A board member raised an eyebrow. Are you aware that dozens of community members submitted testimonies? Briggs's nostrils flared. People exaggerate. They don't like being questioned. Another board member interjected. Is it true you brought Miss Carter to a private room without cause? Briggs swallowed. She resisted cooperating. I answered every question, Aisha said calmly. You refused to show what was in your coat. I refuse an unlawful request, she corrected. Murmurs swelled. A board member tapped her screen. Officer Briggs, we have the video. You escalated the interaction. Briggs stiffened. She provoked me. How? The board member pressed. Her tone. She talked like she was above me, like I was a problem. Aisha's voice softened. I was the problem because I didn't shrink. Briggs slammed his hand on the table. See? She twists things. A collective inhale filled the chamber. The board chair leaned forward. Officer Briggs, please control your temper. Briggs looked away. I'm trying. Another board member cleared his throat. Deputy Carter, were you at any point aggressive, threatening, or resistant? No. Did you ever indicate false credentials? No. Did you impede the election process? I was fulfilling my oversight duty, Aisha replied. He impeded me. The chair nodded. That aligns with all evidence presented. Briggs snapped. Of course it does. Everyone sighed with her now. The whole state saw that video. Because your behavior was documented. The chair cut in. Briggs's voice shook with growing desperation. You're going to ruin my life over this? Over one misunderstanding. Aisha finally looked at him. This wasn't one moment, she said. It was a system finally being seen. Silence fell heavy. The board conferred quietly for several minutes. Then the chair lifted her microphone again. Based on evidence, testimonies, and recorded behavior, the Oversight Board finds that Officer Briggs violated election integrity protocols, abused authority, and engaged in conduct on becoming a law enforcement officer. Effective immediately, he is suspended pending a recommendation for decertification. A gasp rolled through the room. Briggs's face collapsed, shock, rage, disbelief blending into a single hollow expression. His union rep whispered urgently to him, but Briggs didn't move. He simply stared at nothing. The chair turned to Aisha. Deputy Director, thank you for your courage and clarity. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel struck. Aisha exhaled, quietly, painfully. Victory felt nothing like triumph. It felt like weight, because justice always costs something, and she was just beginning to feel the price. The hearing had ended, but its aftershocks continued to reverberate through the halls of the state complex. Aisha walked slowly toward the elevator, past clusters of murmuring staff, reporters whispering into microphones, and volunteers waiting to catch a glimpse of her. Every set of eyes seemed to track her movement, not with suspicion now, but with expectation. Judgment, she had learned, didn't end with a ruling. It lived in how people behaved afterward. By the next morning, Officer Briggs' suspension had become headline news. Officer in viral election confrontation faces decertification. Voter intimidation inquiry expands to multiple sites. Deputy Director Carter launches statewide review. Briggs' union scrambled to distance itself, releasing a statement about procedural concerns and commitment to fair elections. His department issued a terse acknowledgement of ongoing internal review, but none of them defended him outright. Not after the public saw the video. Not after the testimonies flooded in. Aisha had expected bitterness, quiet resentment from those who felt exposed. What she hadn't expected was the emotional weight that followed her everywhere. Congratulations mixed with pain, gratitude tangled with exhaustion. At her office door, she found a small crowd waiting. A few civil rights advocates, 2 volunteers from the polling site, and Haynes. He held a folder against his chest, shifting nervously. "Deputy Carter," he said, voice low, "can we talk?" She stepped aside to let him into her office. The others lingered outside, giving space but watching with hopeful eyes. Haynes sat stiffly. I gave a full statement to Internal Affairs this morning." Aisha nodded. "Thank you." He swallowed. "I told them everything, including the part about last year and the year before." Aisha's gaze sharpened. "There were other incidents?" "Yeah," he whispered. "A lot, but no one ever backed the complaints. The supervisors always said Briggs had strong instincts and that voters were just overly sensitive." Aisha felt her chest tighten. "You knew it was wrong." "I did." He looked ashamed. "But I didn't think speaking up would change anything." Aisha sat back, letting the honesty settle. "It changes something now." He nodded, eyes watering. "I'm sorry. Truly." She placed a steady hand on the desk. "Courage isn't measured by timing. It's measured by truth." Haynes exhaled shakily, relief melting into his shoulders. "If you need anything else, I'll help." When he left, Aisha let herself sit in silence for a moment. She felt the weight of the entire week, the confrontation, the video, the hearing, the testimonies, all pressing into one long, slow exhale. Her phone buzzed. A message from HQ Legal Counsel. "Briggs is meeting with the department this afternoon. Decertification likely." Another from a reporter requesting comment. Another from the director asking for a briefing. Another from a community leader inviting her to speak at a voter protection forum. Aisha muted the notifications. Justice was happening. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably. Later that afternoon, she stopped by the Jefferson Avenue precinct again. Not as an investigator, not as the woman in the viral video, but as someone who needed to see the site with different eyes. The polling floor was reorganized. Officers were replaced with trained election monitors. Volunteers smiled openly. A few recognized her and waved in gratitude. The woman with the cane was there too, watching her granddaughter register. When she spotted Aisha, she walked over. "I saw the news," the woman said softly. "They're saying he might lose his badge." "He's facing consequences," Aisha replied. "Real ones." The woman nodded. "Some people will say it's too harsh. Some will," Aisha agreed, "but not the people who were harmed." The woman squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for not letting fear win." Aisha smiled, small but sincere. "You helped too. Every voice matters." Before leaving, she stepped outside into the cool air. A group of officers stood across the street, not in uniform, but in plain clothes. She recognized Briggs among them. He looked smaller than she remembered. His shoulders slumped, his face hollow, his former confidence stripped away. When he saw her, his expression twisted not with rage, but with something heavier, confusion, disbelief, maybe even regret buried beneath pride. He took a step forward but stopped halfway, as if unsure what he wanted to say. Aisha waited but didn't approach. He finally muttered, barely audible, "You ended everything." She met his gaze. "You ended everything by the choices you made." His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. His friends guided him away, slowly, quietly. Aisha watched him disappear down the sidewalk, swallowed by the same system that once protected him. Judgment had come, not as vengeance, but as consequence. And now, she had one final step left. The morning after the disciplinary meeting, the city felt strangely quiet, as if it, too, had been holding its breath for days and finally exhaled. Aisha sat in her office before sunrise, the low hum of fluorescent lights echoing faintly in the stillness. For the first time in weeks, there were no emails demanding immediate response, no phones ringing off the hook, no reporters waiting outside. But calm did not mean peace. She rubbed her hands together, feeling the residual ache of tension that had lived in her body since Election Day. Victories never felt like triumphs. They felt like survival. A soft knock sounded on her door. Her mentor, Deputy Commissioner Lorraine Brooks, stepped inside, holding 2 cups of tea. "Thought you might need this," she said. Aisha managed a tired smile. "Thank you." Lorraine took the chair across from her. "How are you holding up? And don't give me the professional answer." Aisha stared into her cup, watching the steam swirl. "I'm tired," she admitted. "Not physically. So tired." Lorraine nodded knowingly. Justice usually demands more from us than people realize. Aisha exhaled. "Everyone keeps congratulating me, telling me I saved the election. But it doesn't feel like saving anything. It feels like exposing wounds we should have healed years ago." "That's because you understand the cost," Lorraine said. "Truth has weight, and you carried it publicly." Aisha's voice softened. "Part of me keeps wondering if I should have just shown my badge the moment he questioned me. It would have ended everything." "That's not true," Lorraine replied. "It would have prevented your harm, yes, but it would have hidden everyone else's. The system counts on silence. You're refusing to hide forced change." Aisha let the words settle. They fell heavier than praise, but more honest. Lorraine continued. "Briggs is facing full decertification. His supervisors are under review. Training procedures are being rewritten across the county. Whether you meant to or not, you opened a door others were afraid to touch." "And yet," Aisha whispered, "it still hurts." "That means you're human," Lorraine said. "Not numb. Keep it that way." Aisha nodded, blinking back a tightness in her chest. Later that afternoon, she visited the Jefferson Avenue polling center one last time. Not as an auditor, not as the woman in the viral video, but as someone needing closure. The building was quieter now. Only a handful of volunteers were there, packing materials and cleaning up. A small boy sat on the steps with a coloring book. When he saw her, he nudged his mother and whispered, "That's her." His mother looked up, smiling warmly. "Deputy Carter," she greeted. "We heard what happened yesterday. Thank you for everything." Aisha smiled gently. "Just doing my part." The boy approached her timidly. "My teacher said you protect the vote. Is that true?" Aisha knelt to his height. "I try my very best." He nodded seriously, then returned to his coloring as if satisfied with the answer. Inside the building, volunteers rearranged tables and stacked bins. The teenager who recorded the video spotted Aisha and waved excitedly. "I'm glad you came back," the girl said. "It feels different now. Safer." Aisha looked around. The tension that once gripped the room had dissolved, replaced with a quiet sense of determination. "It should have always felt this way," she said. The girl nodded. "It does now." As Aisha walked through the empty space, she paused at the corner where Briggs had first confronted her. It felt distant now, like a memory trapped in a cracked mirror, still sharp, but no longer defining. Her phone buzzed with a message from the director. "Press is asking for comment. We support whatever statement you choose to make." Aisha slipped the phone back into her coat. For now, silence felt like the truest response. Outside, the sun dipped low on the horizon, golden light warming the cold autumn air. Aisha stood on the steps, feeling the weight of the past days lift. Slowly, not all at once. Some scars would stay, but not all wounds were meant to disappear. Some were meant to remind. As she started toward her car, Lorraine's words echoed in her mind. "Truth has weight, and you carried it publicly. Aisha didn't feel triumphant. She felt steady, grounded, because justice wasn't a moment. It was a responsibility. And she would carry it, scars and all, into the next election, the next battle, the next quiet room where someone needed to be seen. The story hadn't ended with Briggs. It had begun with Aisha.